Hello, everyone. I'm Jules Pretty. I'm Director of the Centre for Public and Policy Engagement here at the University, also Chair of the Essex Climate Action Commission and President of the Essex Wildlife Trust. So I'm very interested in how we address what look like intractable problems, ones that seem like we don't have solutions for them and there's just a lot of contestation around them. The nature and climate crises, as I've just implied, but also fish stocks, farming systems, how we can turn natural systems into ways of seeing recovery and regeneration. In short, how do we make things better for the systems themselves and for those of us who are directly engaging with them? So I'm very interested in the way that we tell stories, and I can see ways that they're going to be emerging in the context of the meeting here. How we convert our kind of meanings and understandings and emotions into novel solutions. So I'm trying to kind of link into policy and practice in that kind of way. Story's always been about transformations of ideas, practices, of habits. Why they work is that when we hear them, we see archetypes in stories that we recognize ourselves in, and we can kind of say, oh yeah, I can see that, that's me, or I can understand what's kind of happening in that. And they're always about conflict and anxiety and joy and heroes and humor, and we can rehearse the world by seeing how people talk about them in stories. We don't actually have to kind of go and do stuff. So let me just kind of say something about a challenge that we face in lots of institutions about the kind of engagement that we have when it comes to stories. Stories, even though we use the term storytelling, are not about telling. And this is a really kind of difficult one for lots to deal with. It's very rarely, for example, about the data alone. It's about the meaning of that to us, which will be different to every single person in the room. We're guilty of this mistake in these kinds of institutions where in the halls of learning, in the palaces of policy, we're very good at telling stuff. I mean, it's partly what you do when you stand up and talk, you're kind of telling, but you're trying to engage an audience in some sort of way. So telling is easy, but mostly people, when they're told stuff, forget about it by tomorrow. So what we need is some kind of different form of engagement. And I've got a simple acronym here that goes TACT, tact, which is you can tell, you can ask people, maybe yes, no answers, and then go away and maybe do something. You can co-produce stuff, and then you can aim for transformation. So what we're clearly trying to do today is some form of co-production, bringing together different views, interests, experiences, tens of decades of experiences of fish systems, and lots of scientific expertise. How can we co-produce some new ideas on the back of all of that? Slipping back to the tell mode is what institutions do really well, and they need to work harder to get out of that space. So my big questions for today are, when we're thinking all about the BAS, what are the co-production and the transformation stories for BAS? Where's the angle that we can kind of change our thinking about the BAS, about sea and estuaries, about marine ecosystems, seagrass nurseries, about fish below the paddle boards, people's different views about fish on your plate as well. So they will always have these multiple meanings in ecosystems. So a key concept that has emerged in environmental policy quite recently, but it does have a kind of longish history here, is something called response diversity, which essentially means lots of ideas rather than one. It's really kind of simple thing. Co-production, having different interests and different experiences together always leads to lots of ideas. Some of them might still look contested, but you have lots of ideas. And so we then generally respond well when we are given choices, lots of choices. The tell mode almost always leads to single solutions. Somebody says, we've done all the work, we've had lots of meetings and stuff, and we've got this single solution because it's the best one. And then we have to take it or leave it. And sometimes we just kind of go, you know, a bit grumpy about that. I think I'll leave it. And so we don't actually get anywhere. So response diversity is a key to how we think about all of this. Tell solutions lead to single outcomes. And a lot of the backlash movements over environments, over natural resources, over nature in many parts of the world have emerged because of single solutions being told to people. I write a blog called The Climate Chronicles on my website, which is based on how to crack difficult problems, how to take a problem into a wide meadow and look at it completely differently when you've got a view of the mountains and you can hear the insects and the sun is shining and you think, oh, that problem looks a bit different now. It feels different. Maybe the metaphor would be a better one. We row out to sea a little bit and look back at the shore. The problem suddenly feels a little bit different. When I was writing my second last book called Sea Sagas of the North, which is about the fish communities around the North Sea, I talked to an old skipper in Lowestoft, where Kieran works, fisher of the drifters and trawlers. He felt old to me at the time. He was an 80-year-old, but as I kind of get older, I think, well, that's not actually really old, is it? You know, that's quite young, isn't it? And he said, you know what, boy, he said, we were kinder and more tolerant in the days when we had the fishing, because we traveled out to Iceland, North Norway, and we came back with gifts and stories about other places and then took them back to others. And he said he had more friends in Iceland, ports and villages than he did in Beccles, 10 miles inland from Lowestoft. In fact, he said Beccles was the foreign land. You know, the Iceland villages felt like kind of home. And so you kind of start to see something different when people are bringing stories back and forth to each other. So a final thought here. In the co-production mode, a kind of instruction that we quite often talk about is to say, bring a brick, not the cathedral, because it takes a long time to do that, but the bricks are good little ideas that help us build something up. And a final observation from a little kind of nice quote from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry in 1939 in his gorgeous book, Wind, Sand and Stars, which actually doesn't have much water in it because it's flying back and forth over the desert. But he did say, if you want to build a ship, don't ask people to gather wood. Teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. So there's something kind of grander that we need to keep reminding ourselves of. So good luck today. I can't stay for the whole day. I'm staying for this first session. And so back to Lowestoft next for Kieran, who's going to be talking. But I think, Anna, you're going to introduce Kieran. So thanks very much indeed, everybody. Hope it goes well today.